All right, welcome to the Eric Tries Too Hard podcast, episode 130. I am here with Sari, Beliak. How is it going?
Good. I was hoping you were going to do the Wayne's World countdown as I was just watching you do with the finger shoot.
Yeah, well, I was actually doing the Emperor from Star Wars.
Okay.
In my head, lightning shoots out of my hands and
like,
touches the... I know, it's just jazz hands, it turns out, but in my head, I'm a badass. Well, so how are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Good.
Good. So you are another one of the many contributors to Hard Times that I've had on the podcast, which is typically my best and favorite guests. So don't tell any of my other guests, though. They won't listen. They never listen to this. So you were a comedian. Which is it? Comedy, stand-up, improv. What's your stage background?
Stand-up.
Okay.
No improv. Okay. I wish that I was good at improv because I respect really good improv, but it's not something that I've really studied. But when I lived in LA, I did City. I did the sketch comedy program there.
Okay, I should have started sketch because I've seen pictures of you. Because I'm a creep. No, because I've seen pictures of you online where it's like you're on stage with someone else, so I never know exactly like what the deal is. So you do comedy, you've done sketch. That's awesome. Okay, you lived in LA. Damn it, I should have done this in chronological order. I may have been drinking caffeine mixed with alcohol.
That's okay.
So
plenty
it's
of time.
So let's just jump. Let's go back to the beginning. I want to know how you got into, because you do contribute to Hard Times, getting into alternative culture and punk or whatever fraction of the alt culture pie you got into, or comedy. What was the first thing you got into as far as an art form?
So I would say that growing up, I was a bit of an indoor kid. I spent a lot of time, hanging out. Hanging out in my bedroom, making mixtapes off of the radio.
Me too. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
So I think probably, I've always been kind of a weirdo, but I think that was probably the beginning into that. And that would start, there was a radio show locally. I'm in Phoenix, and there was a radio show here. They would have Retro Edge lunch hour every day. And they would play The Smiths and Joy Division and Bauhaus and Morrissey. And I'm 32, so this was early to mid 90s. So nobody my age growing up in Scottsdale, Arizona was really listening to a lot of, Depeche Mode, this kind of dark, weird sexual music.
That's a good way to describe Depeche Mode. Dark, weird, and sexual. That's the genre tags they'd have on Pandora.
I know. I think back on it now when I think of songs. I was listening to the song "Master and Servant," and I was like, "What the hell did I think that song was about?" When I was
I remember singing Green Day's Basket Case at the dinner table, and my mom was like, "Do you know what a whore is?" It's like, "Nope," but I went to oh shit, no.
Yeah, there's so much weird stuff. I listened to a lot of Erasure and Yaz, just stuff that was questionable sexuality-driven music, and I was just like, "Yeah, this is great. I love this song." Went right over my head. So I think a lot of that music, that time in my life, spending that time pretty much glued to my little boom box and waiting to press record at the radio, a lot of that. And then I think that was around the time, are we about the same age? Are you in early 30s?
I'm not going to ask you how, I am 30. I am fine. Okay. If you want to tell me how old you are, that's great. But I've had enough female guests on this. Okay, I've had enough female guests on the podcast where it's I'll ask the question and I'll be like, well, they're tight-lipped for the rest of this goddamn thing.
No. I was trying to place because that was when MTV used to play music videos. I would stay up late and watch. It was 120 minutes. I don't know if you remember that show, but it was actual music videos. So
it didn't last 120 minutes. That was the bullshit part. They never are as advertised on that channel.
I don't know.
I have a friend. He has I don't think he'll give a shit if I tell it on this podcast. He has this bit where it's just a quick joke. He goes, I might be old, but I still remember when the History Channel played music videos.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that's good. Watch those, and that was mid-90s was a great time for alt rock. Like, that was a really good time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. And I was really inspired by, that was a great time for women in music. Like, I still listen to a lot of the music from then.
I didn't even notice that, but you're right. And that's actually good, because I don't think a lot of people particularly notice. They're like, no, this is just great bands.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, it was like half.
I listened to a lot of like Juliana Hatfield, Hole, The Murmurs. I mean, there were so many just like female-driven bands coming out at that time. And I have this weird nostalgia for that time in music. So I feel like that was a big part of it for me. I sometimes feel like I get to sit with the cool kids at the table as far as writing for the hard times. Cause I mean, I know a little bit about punk music. I know things about punk, but I definitely, grew up in like a nice Jewish suburban.
Well, I don't know if you know this, but most punks come from suburbia. I don't know if this is a big secret.
No, I know, it's true. But I think
But you sound very fluent in punk culture. Not punk culture, alternative culture specifically.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I've always been interested like in subcultures and pop culture, things of that. I mean, I studied that a lot in college, like the genres that were a little bit off of the mainstream. That's always been interesting to me. I did some like women and gender studies, so became interested in kind of Riot Girl and punk music from there. But I wouldn't say that I was necessarily like growing up listening to punk music.
Yeah, well, it sounds like
composer writing for the hard.
No.
I'm just
trust
waiting
me.
for
I
somebody to
know.
call me out.
I finally got a. By the way, saying you're sitting with the cool kids at hard times, that's the first time anyone's considered anybody in this genre the cool kids. But it is.
I think
I feel this. I feel the same way.
I feel honored.
It's such like it's pretty much every time I have a hard times guest on, I pitched for like, I didn't even get accepted on my first like attempt at submitting pitches. It took another round of pitches for me to get in. And once I was in, I pitched for, if I really counted up 1, 2, 3, 6 months went by and I had one thing get on. That was it. That was, I think, because Matt felt bad. And he was like, yeah, I'll put this on for you. It's cool. But like, but even in all that, it's just awesome to be like kind of a part of that thing where you're just like, well, but still, and this is what interests me about people into alt culture and other subcultures, I mean, that fall under that umbrella, is that when they're involved in comedy, that usually requires a skewed perspective on things, but also being able to relate it to people who don't necessarily ever. And I think alt culture goes hand in hand with that. So if you're in the middle of Scottsdale, Arizona, what I assume isn't the most broad and diverse spectrum of ideas and art and culture. No offense to Scottsdale, but I'm just comparatively okay. I could just be an idiot. It's like some oasis for culture, and I have no idea. But in that enjoying things you enjoy and viewing the world the way you do, that's ripe for comedy. So, like, what got you really into loving comedy? What got you into actually doing it? Because that's another huge step. For me, it took about 25 years between when I loved it and did it.
Yeah, I always loved writing, and I always got a lot of encouragement from my writing. But I always thought it was like, Mom, you're just saying that because you're my mom. It was like, oh, my teacher's just saying that because they like me. And I moved out to LA when I was 19, and I actually auditioned for the.
Why'd you move to LA? I gotta know this. Hold on, why'd you go to LA?
So I moved to LA because I also dance, and I had been dancing a show that was in New York, and I wasn't ready to move to New York. But one of the directors, one of the choreographers was out in LA and I had family out there. So that to me, it's like, oh, 6 hours away, that's a little bit easier. I'll have some family and support out there, go out there, take some dance classes. Living in LA for like 6 years. So I auditioned for Groundlings. I did not get in. And then I started doing sketch. I did the sketch program there. And I think I was 20 when I started that. And then I finished writing there and I didn't do anything with it. I ended up going to school and I kept writing a lot. But I went up to school in Santa Cruz, which for me is a great place for subcultures and weirdos.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've been kind of Pacific Northwest area. But after living in LA for 6 years, it was major culture shock. You know,
okay.
People like walking around barefoot and drinking out of spaghetti sauce jars and like
the fucking jars, don't get started on those goddamn jars.
A lot of the stuff that I pitched about, you know, like the conspiracy theory guy and, you know, all these different, it's from my time living in Santa Cruz because it's just such a fantastic and wacky place that exists.
Yeah.
And especially to go from living in LA and then moving there where it's like, oh, that's what women look like. Like I started to forget, you know, people are just be like wandering around the woods like little wood nymph creatures and stumbling into class high out of their minds. It was like, where the hell am I?
Okay, so wait, where are you now?
I'm in Phoenix.
You're still, yeah, that's right. I knew it was, gotcha. So when did you move back? Or back-ish?
I finished in Santa Cruz in 2012. And okay. I thought I was going to get one of those cool Bay Area jobs, like nonprofit job where you get to like wear Toms to work and teach hip hop to like underprivileged kids. And I could not get any job at that point. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to save up and then I'll move to San Francisco. One of the most expensive cities. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I was like, yeah, this is a great way to pay off.
For a couple years. I was like, how does anybody live? Like you would all, that's why there's so many homeless people. They moved there and they had trust funds and then the rent fucking killed them.
I love San Francisco. It blows my mind what the cost of living is crazy, there.
Yeah.
You know, I see stuff because I have a lot of friends like in Oakland and around the Bay Area, and I'll see them share stuff on Craigslist like, you know, oh, we're looking for a roommate, or you can sleep on our couch for $800 a month, but like you can't be there during the day, and we only like you can't use the toilet between these hours, like all these crazy things. And people are like, wow, you know, is it still available? That sounds amazing.
It's still available. It's been 12 hours. Can I get in?
Right. Okay. And then you're living in a tiny, like a 2-bedroom with 6 people and somebody's like sleeping in the crawl space. Like, wow, we get to live in San Francisco. This is amazing.
One of my podcast regulars, he early on in the podcast, the first time I interviewed him, he was like, he was telling me the story about his first 2 years in LA sleeping under the kitchen table, and someone else slept on top of the kitchen table, like bunk beds. And he was like, yeah, it was only like $600 a month. Oh my God. That's crazy.
So just to give you an idea, for what I was spending when I lived in Santa Monica, I shared a shitty apartment with a friend of mine. It was like this tiny 2-bedroom. We didn't have parking. I mean, you know, there's no washer and dryer. Nobody in LA has a washer and dryer. It was a really old building. For what I was spending there, I have a 2-bedroom here with like covered parking, washer, dryer, safe neighborhood. Like, no one's been shot outside my neighborhood that I'm aware of. Like it's so totally different. And I miss California. I love California so much, but it's tough to live there. It wears on you. And I get to go there often. I go to LA and visit friends, and I was in San Francisco earlier this summer. But it's just financially, it takes a toll on you.
Yeah, I bet. I have a lot of friends who, 'cause I'm from Baltimore, a lot of my friends who, as they get progress in stand up or just in whatever, they end up like a lot of them go to New York. And so I hear a lot of similar things, and I've started visiting up there, and I could totally, like, I'm enchanted by it. But if I spent more than a weekend a month up there, I imagine eventually it'd be like, oh my God, it's every day. This is life every single day. That's what I pictured with like New York. I was like, the second something goes wrong in a city like this, for you, or something that's like, you have to deal with something, that's just a hassle. Like I love my little teeny tiny suburb. If I could commute into a city, that would be lovely. That would be very lovely. Yeah. So tell me, how did you get into doing stand-up? Were you doing it at the same time as sketch? Was it something that happened during, after? Like, what was your stand-up trajectory?
So stand-up was something, I think I had this idea that it would be kind of like karaoke, you know, because people are always like, oh, you're so funny. And they would like, you should go up and do it. You should go up.
That is exactly how karaoke is. You can sing, go up and do it.
You're so good. You should go up there.
People will support you.
Yeah, I always secretly wanted to do stand-up. Yeah. Like, even when I was first living in LA, when I was like 20, 21, I always wanted to do it, but I was so terrified to even try. So the first time I actually did stand-up, I think, was the end of 2014. And it was because I had read Amy Poehler's book, Yes, Please, and I finished the last paragraph, and I was just like, comedy?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, if you haven't read that book, it's excellent, but there's so much great stuff in there about her starting Upright Citizens Brigade. And I really, like, I finished reading that book and was just like, I have to do stand-up. And shortly after that, I did stand-up the first time. And then there was like a long period in between that. And now slowly getting back into it where it's more of a regular thing.
Yeah.
But still very new at it.
Before I ask you about... Yeah.
What's that?
Say again. No, say again. There's always a slight delay on the Hangouts, so I will always cut myself off. So tell me, what was the last thing?
I think I was with the hard times. It's great because, and I know you're the same way. We're writing every single day. We're pitching stuff. We're getting feedback every single day. So I have a lot of friends, and I admire about them. They're getting up on stage every night. Yeah. I am not that good. If I go up once or twice a week, I feel like that's amazing. But yeah, I feel like writing every day and the editing and fine tuning and getting feedback, and because there's definitely been stuff, which I'm sure we'll talk about, where you're like, this is so funny, and you pitch it and you get nothing.
This actually happened just the other day. Past guest on the podcast and amazing writer, Kyle Erf. I'm sure you've seen his stuff. Yeah, Jesus. When I had him on, he wasn't like killing in the group. He did okay. I mean, he had plenty of articles on, but he wasn't like. And now he just put up a thing from Medium, like, that he got on. That was really funny, and like, but he wasn't like the monster that he is right now. But when I had him on, but the other day, I guess he had an article go up that didn't do particularly well, just with social media shares, which is rare for him. I saw it and I was like, all right, I've been through that. Like, that's not, I get you. But he posted something that was like, I forget exactly what it said, but it was along the lines of like, it's crazy how sometimes things work, sometimes things don't, whatever, even if you think that they're really good. And that's something I've heard, I've experienced this a lot, and I've also heard echoed by like successful comedians, is that typically, not all the time obviously, but typically, if a joke is super like crazy funny to you, then that usually means it's too specific to your tastes. You figured out the perfect joke for you, which doesn't make it any less funny. It's just someone else needs more background. And that's why, like, sometimes, like, I've had people tell me that this happens to them, and it happens to me plenty, where I'll pitch something or I'll do a joke on stage that I think is, like, okay, and it does better than all the stuff I think is great because it resonated with more people because it was less, specific. And
so I recently posted a headline, and I texted it to my brother. So my family is Jewish. My brother he became Orthodox, so he and his family are Orthodox Jews. And I was at work setting up in the morning, and I was like, oh my God, a Jewish cover band, Black Shabbos. And I started like putting together this storyline of this Jewish cover band. And for me, I'm picturing it because I know, I'm picturing like these big bearded guys walking around, like carrying their equipment, and they're a Black Sabbath cover band. And I texted it to my friend, and he was like, fuck you, that is so funny. I'm so mad that I didn't know that. And I pitched it to the group, and people were like, yeah, this is funny, this and that. And then I was like, Matt, what's up? Like, that's the funniest thing I've ever said in my life. He was like, yeah, we just thought it was like too much of a pun.
Don't believe me. And that's what's, God, I was just one of my last podcast guests, Greg Gethard, who I was just talking about this with. It's because it's a three-pronged approach, and I didn't start getting stuff on. It took me 6 months of pitching nothing before I really got anything on, before I started like really listening to, or like reading the posts Matt, Bill, and Ed would leave, and listening to them on interviews and podcasts where they would talk about, it's multiple aspects. It has to be funny, but it also has to like emotionally resonate, and it has to be a lot of times either timely or some kind of like larger cultural issue in one way or another. And if and something can be fucking 5-star on one of those three prongs, but if it doesn't have all three, it can be great. The pitches, there's so many funny pitches that don't get on because they're just funny. And it's like, and learning that was probably the biggest thing I've like learned in all of comedy, just period. Because like I remember earlier on when I did podcasting long before I did any stand-up or comedy writing, and doing long before. It's been 2.5 years. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But like doing it, I realized with podcasts, it was like you have to be interesting before all else, and then funny right underneath it. It also has to be funny, but interesting is the top thing. And that's kind of how I've started to think about writing jokes for audiences and pitching for hard times is like, okay, are people going to relate to this? What's going to make them, and Matt talks about this all the time, what's going to make them hit the share button? That's the biggest, like, what really makes them, and yours is, it's very funny, but it's like, believe me, I've had so many like this where I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
What else is on Facebook? Because it still got the laugh, but it didn't, and it's one of those things, if there were maybe like, I can't speak for anybody but me, but I was like, if I'm running the hard times, then I'm like, if there's 10 writers and I see that, oh yeah, that goes on. But when there's 100 pitches a day or whatever crazy number it is, you're like, there's lots of funny pitches that don't, and that's what, and I relate to so much because I'm thinking about all those pitches I had where I'm like, I have the story, it's right here, but it just didn't.
And to me, I was like, I don't know if you feel this way too, but sometimes you get like mad or defensive. Because I think the headline was the Jewish cover band Black Shabbos needs to go on after sundown.
Yeah.
So the joke is about all Jewish holidays, they start or end around. So part of me wanted to like get on there like in all caps and be like, do you guys not know about Jewish holidays?
I promise it's going to be great. Yeah. Well, that's what, like
guys, you're serious? So I'm not done with that pitch yet, because to me it's still like a Jewish cover band playing Black Sabbath to me is like,
but that's the beauty of it. Your response to that, and I think that's why you're such a good writer, and we'll get into the positives of this shit, but like your response to that, like you said, the knee-jerk reaction, and I used to have this, and well, I did music I still do, but I did music hard for about 12 years, and that's where I like kind of burnt out a lot of my bad habits. I'm sure I've got plenty of bad habits I don't even realize, but there are so many like mistakes I made for that, where going into the comedy world, I thought, God, I didn't do this when I was 20. I mean, I wish I did. I would have made so many more.
Yeah.
But the gut reaction, I want to be like, no, it's really good. But the reason why you're good is you sit back and you go, all right, fuck it. I'm going to make this better. This is going to work, and you're going to see, because I'm going to make it better and put it up the next time. And that's brilliant. And that's why first off, the second article that you had posted up, which did great, and I know you had a much bigger one that I'll talk to in a minute, but this one is one of those rare ones, I think, where it is so funny. This is rare jokes, period. So funny, but so perfectly relatable. It's like this weird perfect storm of the local dad offered record deal after sick drum solo on Buick steering wheel. The picture that paints, not to mention the fucking picture on the article.
The photo is amazing. Whoever that man is, God bless him.
Yeah, right.
Great picture.
Tell me about tell me about how you came up with that particular concept. Was there a process? Did it just stick in your head? What happened with that one?
Sometimes I think when I'm trying to think of an idea, I think kind of in subheadings. So around that time, I think I pitched it as a Father's Day idea. And then it ran regular, not as Father's Day, but definitely inspired by my own dad who drove a Buick and who would, jam out in the car and rock out. And it was really cute. When that article came out, he was so proud and he printed it out.
Oh.
The whole thing. So it has all of the comments, all of the ads. And then he got in trouble from my mom because he used up all of the colored ink.
What a great, by the way, that response, that's the ultimate dad response to something.
Right?
They print it out, but it's the whole page. It's not just the thing. And then
the article, it's all of the ads at the bottom.
And then your wife gets mad at you, even though...
Yeah. All the people commenting on it, is this real? Where's the video? Just having this whole conversation.
That's great.
All of the ink from the printer. So I actually have the copy. I don't know, he printed out to me and he gave it to me. So I have it hanging on my fridge. It's on the internet.
He had it put on your fridge. The best intention, that's the ultimate dad thing. And I felt this way so much more.
He gave it to me. I was I read it. I know how it goes. But when I just moved, I put it up on my fridge. So it's that great picture of the guy wailing on the steering wheel. Yeah.
I love it. That's the ultimate dad thing.
That article
the best intention.
Happy because it came out at a time where there was, which unfortunately is super common now in our world, but there was so much horrible news going on. It was two black men that had been killed by police officers, and then there was this.
Just two? Is that it? Oh my God! What a simpler time we lived in.
It was only two in the history of America.
Yeah, it was crazy. That's not funny, but we're making fun of
the officer shootings in Dallas. So there was and there's just so much horrible shit and really upsetting stuff going on. And then that article came out, and it made me really happy to see. Yeah. Because you can see when people share it, it was just light.
Yeah.
And to see people sharing it with their siblings, oh, Brian, this is totally our dad, or this is gonna be when I'm a dad. And it wasn't offensive, it wasn't controversial. It just, I know this probably sounds really cheesy or masturbatorial, but it made me feel really good. It was I made the internet happy. Yes. The internet needs everything.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's
the internet is mad about everything, and it felt people were, as you can see, people comment on it. They're man, I really needed this today. I was I made the internet happy. This is great.
That isn't cheesy. It's not. By the way, the fact that masturbatorial sounds like editorial is very funny to me in this moment. I've never actually linked that together. Well, so last week I launched a fantasy football satire website, which is something that I've had in the works forever. It's tiny, it's teeny tiny, and Matt from Hard Times was fortunate enough to give me some advice on how to launch a website. So it was really cool, and I've got a lot of friends I'm working on with it. It's just fun. It's one of those things where it's I've been in bands forever. There are some bands where I'm I want to make it. There are others where I'm I just want this to exist. I need to put this record out so it exists in the world, even if it's just for me. that's kind of how this site is for me. I was like, I just want it to exist. And we've been focusing on a lot of timely articles where something happens in the NFL and we make a joke about it like immediately. Mm-hmm. And we did this one where there was a player on the Cowboys. Now the Cowboys, do you follow football at all?
No, only basketball.
Well, you're in Arizona, so you don't give a fuck about football.
I know that they're from Dallas.
Yeah. Well, so the Cowboys have a history, especially with their owner, of having like former criminals or guys with like really shady pasts. Like he's the guy who forgives everybody and gives them another chance. And they had their new star player or whatever, their number one draft pick. This guy expected to be amazing. He just had a scandal where while playing a game in Washington State, he went into a legal marijuana store. Just went in, didn't buy anything. And then the owner was like, there was this big story like, it really calls into question his character. I was like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? And so our headline was basically about how this scandal like makes everyone who likes the NFL feel good because they're like, well, at least somebody didn't get killed. At least nobody beat their girlfriend. And we ran that, and it was just like, maybe 300-400 people read it, but it was like, it still was one of those things where we put it out in the world and we're like, it's light, it's fluffy, it's fun, it's silly. And that's a good feeling. And your article got shared by 16,000 people. Like you really did make the internet happy for a day. And that's a good feeling. And you did it in a creative, artistic way. You didn't just share a goddamn kitten photo and people fawned all over it.
I mean,
now, I want to ask you. Now you did something that you crushed it. So right after Pokemon Go came out, the Hard Times, Matt and them really wanted, we got to have a Pokemon Go article. This is a satire site that people who read us like, and you had man playing Pokemon Go can't find Charmander or Clitoris. God damn it! When I saw that pitched, I was like, oh my god. Well, game over. That's the end of this thread. Did you know how goddamn good it was when you pitched that thing? Did you have any idea, or were you just like in the slew of pitches? You were just like, this might be funny. What was your feeling right after?
I had pitched something before that, something about a teen girl wandering into a Guar show looking for Jigglypuff, and I thought that string of words together was really. I thought that was funnier. So people were kind of like into that. So many bizarre words.
Yeah, that is Jigglypuff, Guar. Yeah.
Right, and then thinking like the other jokes in there for like looking for Volvatron and all these like Guar characters.
That's funny.
Just with her phone, that to me was funnier. But
sorry,
I think the other. It sounds like. I think the article, the headline that eventually went up was more concise
and relatable. It really spread out far beyond because you need to know who Guar is for the other one. But the fact that this was like you, and I think Matt even said it in the forum or in the pitch group. Your headline transcended a niche genre. It was just the best Pokemon Go satire headline on the internet. Like, do you understand how good that is? It's insane. That's no man. Hey, I didn't. I was. Thank Matt, Ed, and Bill. They were the ones who were like, no, they really yeah. Don't forget Ed. Everybody always forgets Ed.
And Ed. And Ian and everybody else.
No, but that's so. I just had one question about it. Like, why'd you name him Eric?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I know it really crushed me. It really hurt my feelings. I knew. No, I'm just fucking with you. But that is.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to imply anything.
No.
It was just the name. Oh, damn. It just is the name.
Of a bunch of an impotent race of men who just can't seem to, this whole podcast was a setup, by the way. I started it years ago just in case something like this would happen. And I gotcha. So take that. No. Okay, so that's a good. I liked how And I find this too, in two, like your two biggest articles, I assume those are the two biggest, right? And the other two were good, but Jesus Christ, those two were like huge. Well, hey, I've never hit a home run like your clitoris article. God damn it. Like, that's fantastic.
Thank you. That's a great sentence you just said too.
But seriously, there's only like a handful of people, even the site as big as it is, like, dude, you put up an article and it gets 3,000 shares on social media. And you're like, man, I wish I could have done a little bit better to keep up with hard time standards. But if you literally do that, imagine if you did that on your own page, how that would be like the greatest thing ever.
Like, I've had a blog for a couple years, and probably in the 3 or 4 years that I've had it, I haven't had maybe, I don't even know, like 1,000, whatever it is. It's so trivial.
But
so even like. Right, even like the Bikini Kill piece that I wrote, I don't know how many shares. That one wasn't wildly popular.
It's really funny though.
Still way more than like anything I'd ever written before. Yeah. And it's always helpful. I think it's always cool when Matt says stuff like, you know, picture telling a joke to that many people.
Yeah.
That's not even read. Like, we don't know how many hits the actual article gets. He's just saying like, this has been shared, you know, 30,000 times or 50,000 times. I mean, the Gorilla Biscuits article was shared like something thousand times. It's like, if you're a comic, a joke that you wrote reach that many people, that's nuts, you know. And this is coming from somebody that does like open mics and bringer shows.
Dude, there was a day I had an article go up and it got, I forget which article it was, but it was definitely one of the ones that like reached or expanded 10,000 shares. And then on that same day, I had like an article, or might have even been one of those rare days where I had 2 articles accepted. And I'm like riding this high, and I get to the open mic night and bomb for 5 straight minutes. And I'm like, what the fuck is life about?
I want to tell you something funny about that. So I think this was the beginning of July, the local dad getting the record deal. That came out, I think, like on Friday. And then Monday, the Pokemon came out.
You're right.
On Monday. I'm like, you know, Matt gave me this really nice shout out in the group, and, you know, people are like comics that I respect are like, this is the funniest thing ever. You know, I'm really like, oh my gosh, this is so, like, I might actually be funny. This is so exciting. And
that's the feeling you get. I might actually be funny.
And then I swear to God, the next pitch that I shared with the group was, wish I could remember it word for word. It was like, Skrillex announces national tour in MRI machines across the US or something.
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
And it was as if, like, you could hear the, like, wah, 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 wah.
No, it was more like,
you know,
sorry, that was terrible.
Oh my God. No, that was really good. It was.
You're just reliving something.
It was like a very humbling moment, because I was like, whoa, you know, getting praise and recognition from people I respect, and, you know, people are sharing my stuff and like acknowledging that I'm funny. Like, this is how I want to be seen in the world. And then I pitched that. That was like the next thing, man. I don't even know if anybody liked it. It might have had like 1 or 2, but I think I ended up deleting it because I was so embarrassed.
Oh my God. That's one of those things where, like, I had that feeling a lot in music, and in comedy, it was like, I don't know, it really was. I bombed so many times early in hard time stuff where I was like, and I talked to this, I forget there's multiple people who've agreed with me about this when they first started at hard times, where we were all worried that every time we bombed a pitch, they might kick us out of the group for it being so bad. And having that fear, bombing so many times, and eventually being like, oh, that's like the story of my life, where it's like, I'm so used to fighting to, like, even be on par with the other people around me that, like, by the time I get to that point, I've had so much failure that it doesn't, like, it still affects you in the moment. But, like, I gotta say, after so much failure, it really was just like the last time I had and 2 articles published on the same day, which, by the way, is just a coincidence that they happen to be put on the same day. But Matt was still very nice and made a post for me. And I was, by the way, I was so happy with, because I've seen other people get those posts and I go, they deserved it, but I'm so jealous and I so wish that was me. And when it was finally me, and you and I have talked about this online, I'm so uncomfortable with compliments that I was like, I don't want it. Turns out I didn't want it. So, but dude, like, that's why I even put in there, I was like, you guys, I'm going to bomb the next 30 of these. Like, there's no way I'm going to have anything good.
It was almost like I had been jinxed. You know, it was like Matt gave me the shout out, like, you know, shout out to Sari for crushing all other Pokemon jokes. Like, I think he
you
put,
did
I don't know if it was in the Hard Times page or on his personal Facebook, but he linked, can't touch this video, like, can't touch Hard Times, all this. And then like, do you know that, this is such an obscure reference, but that frog, that cartoon frog character, his name is Michigan J something. So he,
I'm gonna guess
in the different cartoons,
go on.
He's quiet, and then like when he's around his owner or whatever, he has a top hat and a cane, and he's like, "Hello, my baby. Hello, my baby." He's like singing.
Name. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Around other people, and they're like, "Look at how funny." He's just like looking around, like. I feel like I identify strongly with that frog.
Oh,
and I felt like in that moment, you know, it was like, man, I'm so lucky. Like I get to write in this group and my stuff's being acknowledged. And then it was just like bomb, like right after that, just like to me. I would just put stuff up and then I'd come back and like 6 hours later, I'd just delete it, be like, hopefully nobody saw that.
No, it never happened. No, and that's so, I relate to that a lot. It really very much is just like, and it's, well, imagine you're pitching new jokes to people. That's what it is. And it's like, this experience is like the coolest, like, writer's room style experience, I think, where, and I've told Matt this, I was like, I don't know if you know this, but you don't even, it hasn't even happened yet, but you've launched a handful of careers. Like, what's going to happen, regardless what avenue they take, people are going to have had their start at the Hard Times, and not just because it has a platform for lots of people to see it, and we have amazing credits on a resume that a lot of people don't get because we write for this site that has such a great name, and such a great fan base and everything. That, like, but it's also the experience where the stuff we go through. It's not like I know people who write for other websites that are, you know, as big or bigger, I assume, based on, you know, name recognition, but where their whole process is they write it, they send it to essentially an anonymous email, like we had to send our first pitches to, and that's all the interaction they get. They don't have this writer's room experience that we get, where if we're ever in an actual period where not only we get the job to be a writer on X, Y, or Z, but like we're in the room, we can have a better chance of keeping it or excelling in it because we've had that same experience that a lot of people don't get, which is very fortunate for us. Like, I don't know if you agree or like, that's just my gushy response about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I do feel very lucky. When I submitted my pitches, probably back in April, maybe like a week later, or I'm like really annoying and persistent. And maybe another week went by and I finally heard back from him, real brief, you know, it was like, oh, I like a couple of these. Like, I like this one, I like this one. Why don't you join our Facebook group? And I was like, oh, okay. And this was, I think in April, like the end of April, maybe. Yeah. And
it only took you 2 months to get something on, huh? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm fucking around with you. No.
I told you, though, the other night, we have a really great storytelling show here in Phoenix called Yarn Ball, and the theme was...
That's a great name, Yarn Ball.
And, and I went up on stage, I printed out a bunch of my headlines.
Yeah.
I read some of them that had been rejected. I mean, some of them were like so embarrassingly bad. They were like the ones that I deleted because I didn't even want anyone to know that I had pitched them.
This is yeah, that's really this is I haven't even asked Matt about this, and he often listens when there's hard time guests on, so maybe this will be, I should probably send him an email tonight before I put this up. This will go up probably later this week or early next week. It depends on how I have to splice them.
I'm supposed to be working on something that's supposed to come out tomorrow, so
They don't know
don't let him know
that
I'm not finished with it. It's a piece about Burning Man. It's not finished yet.
I have a hard style article I need to write that, like,
it's like homework, and then I have two other ones that I'm just like do.
By the way, that's how good of a feeling is that? The first handful of articles I wrote, I was like, this is the most important thing in my life right now. I don't give a my crying baby can stay in the bed. I'll deal with her later. I got to write this piece about a band becoming a nonprofit organization, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And now I'm like,
I'm totally calling Child Protective Services on you. I can't believe you just said that on your own podcast.
Listen, she has a mother.
What's her name? I'm gonna call them. Where did you say you are? Baltimore? I'm gonna look.
Yeah, her name is Juliet Sandra Navarro, and her social security is 42089.
Cry while you write satire jokes.
She'll understand when she's older. And you know what? All of this emotional trauma she's going through now is going to make her love comedy. It's really an internship program we've got going on to make her a budding comedian. That's what we're going for.
What if she grows up to be a juggalo? Then it's going to be your fault.
A juggalo? I don't know, because guess
you're going to have a juggalo baby if you keep letting that baby cry while you write hard times articles.
Listen, I didn't mean for this to be my coming out moment, but in high school, before I knew what juggalo culture was, I was a big fan of the Insane Clown Posse. Loved them.
Oh no!
Because their whole juggalo thing, the way they describe juggalos is how people describe punks. They're like, no, juggalo, it's no big deal. It's just a guy or a girl who isn't a bigot, who just wants to be themselves, express themselves freely, and doesn't care about the mainstream. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. They never mentioned meth. If I knew about all the meth.
Dude, I'm fascinated by juggalo culture. I mean, if I could be an anthropologist and just go to the gathering of the juggalos, and I've watched a couple documentaries on juggalo. That shit is fascinating to me.
No, it is. Well, it's like it's the way I describe it is it's like I was gonna say some negative things about juggalos, but I didn't mean to. But in a positive, it's like they have a lot of flaws, like as a group. But like the intentions in a lot of are so pure that it's hard to be angry. It's like because it really is like white trash punk rock is the white trash version of punk rock is what that is.
It's fascinating to me. I really.
Truth be told,
I wish that I had.
Yeah.
I did like my undergrad, and I was going to do cultural anthropology, and for that reason, like when I watch documentaries about juggalos, I'm like, man,
great.
Could have been me out there interviewing juggalos, and like hitting the road, just learning all about them.
You got all their slang, so you can fit it. It's like Jane Goodall with the apes, and you're just like you pull out your piece of paper, you're like a whoop, 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 whoop. Whoop, 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 and the whole dissolves into a whole thing of whooping, and then you're part of the tribe. Well, here's the other thing is that the guys in ICP, they're a classic case of fan base that people don't like, but if they got past that, and the art that they make, they're two of the funniest guys, intentionally, not unintentionally. If you ever watch on, I think it was on Fuse, I could be wrong, but I think it was Fuse, they did a show called ICP Theater, where they just watched and gave commentary tracks on music videos of today. And it is really funny and not unintentionally. Everything they say, you're watching and you're like, oh, they know who they are. They know what they're doing. They know how this comes across. They're comic geniuses.
So after this interview, I'm going to send you one of the documentary things that I watched. It's actually not a documentary. It's like a promotion for the gathering of the juggalos, and it's hilarious. I don't know who wrote it.
No, the news ones they did. Yeah, they do a series of like fake news broadcasts.
Yeah, it's like
leading up
commercial kind of thing.
Yeah,
And I was watching it at my kitchen table and I was laughing so hard. It's so funny. Like, I want to find out who the comedy writer is on that.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do I get it?
If you look at the Gathering of the Juggalos, it's like the bands that are playing, it's all the ICP, like horrorcore rap groups. And then it's like a bunch of like sleazy new metal bands. And then if you look at their comedian section, it's usually a bunch of really talented, like highly respected comedians. Like, they know their comedy. Like, they know their shit.
I can't think of, there's one guy I'm picturing that I'm sure is there. I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
That would be...
Well, I was going to say, Big J. Okerson is new metal incarnate, so I imagine he's probably done it at least once. But yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Where can we find... just because we're wrapping up, where can we find anything about you? You have the greatest Twitter handle name. That I love your Twitter handle. Tell it to the lovely folks.
It's The Craft Ceiling, which is the name of my blog, and my Twitter and my blog both are under tweeted and written from. Unfortunately, so I need to step it up.
Oh.
I think I actually tweeted something today. I'm so terrible at Twitter. I don't feel like I totally get it.
Well, I think Twitter is the place for a lot of throwaway jokes if you're a comedian. And the question is, I never know if something's a throwaway joke or a keeper. So, like, I have no idea, like, how it contributes to I get it, but it's here. You know how I've used it that's gotten me Twitter followers more than anything else is going to any subscribing to the trending topics in LA, and a lot of times, especially if you follow a lot of comedians, they're like joke premises. So it's like hashtag. Oh, what was the only one I've ever like done really well on was it's similar to how At Midnight does what's it called does hashtag wars. It's basically that but unsanctioned, and there was one that was hashtag Jesus pickup lines. And so I put, if anybody knows how to get nailed, it's me. And that did pretty well. And thank you. That's probably my best Twitter joke I've ever had. That got me like 20 Twitter followers out of nowhere. And like even like just going there and pitching those kind of like jokes, you'd be surprised how many people will find you on Twitter and follow. That's my only Twitter advice. Don't listen to me. I have like 250 Twitter followers. I don't know a goddamn thing, but that's what's worked in my history.
I always feel bad when people, like, I'll get a couple followers after a Hard Times article, and I'm just like, oh, do these people, they don't know that I, like, never tweet anything. I just don't feel like I'm disappointing them.
Wait. You've gotten followers after a Hard Times article?
Like, we're talking like maybe 2 or 3.
That speaks to how, and I noticed this before I ever even wrote for Hard Times, and it's not just Hard Times, it's every site. People who like stuff online don't really give a shit about who wrote it. Like, they care about the brand, but they don't care about the author. And that's nature, and I've done it too. It's just every once in a while. This is why I became such a fan of the Hard Times writer, both Bill Conway and also Dan Liberto. He was someone who I would read Hard Times articles early on before I ever touched the site as far as writing or pitching, and I would go, oh, this made me laugh really hard. And I'd look, and it was almost, not always, but it was like a good quarter of the time it was either Dan or Bill. And I was like, those guys know what they're doing. Like, that's made me be big fans of them going in. But I never followed either of them on Twitter until I joined up.
Sure.
So, go figure.
I find
so
that
where else
too,
can we find your stuff?
Well, I was going to say with Hannah in our group, like, she had an article the other day, and I was sitting at work, like, laughing. Like, people were looking at me like I was crazy. It was the one about the graffiti in the women's bathroom being super...
Oh, shit, I love that one.
I was laughing so hard because I don't think... I like the joke because it's, of course, it's like a female-centered joke, and it's one of those, like, we're seriously outnumbered in that group, so it's something about girl culture, but it's super relatable.
Yeah.
And it's so funny to me. Like, when I lived in Santa Cruz, the administration got tired of painting over the graffiti in the women's restroom. Really nice stuff and like interesting things. And finally people just started, they would put up like white butcher paper for us to write messages and like positive things to each other. You know, it's like, hey girl, like you can do it. And you know, all this stuff, like, I know you're going through a hard time right now, but like it's gonna get better. And you just be sitting on the toilet like, wow, this stranger really cares about me.
That's really funny.
So I texted her, I was like, girl, I'm sitting at work and I'm crying laughing.
No, that headline, I remember when it was pitched, I love, probably, you know, other than like getting an opportunity to like learn how to be a comedy writer, my second favorite part about that group is seeing pitches before they go up. Because my God, and that's the other thing is that there are pitches in there where, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, there's plenty of pitches in there where they're like the funniest jokes ever. And while I totally understand why there's limited space on the site, like you can only have so many articles, so you really have to be selective. But there are so many more jokes that make me laugh on a daily basis that never make it on. And being a part of that group, I just feel fortunate to get to see all these comedy writers make those jokes and just lose my shit over stuff that whether it ever airs or not, God damn it, did it bring me a lot of joy kind of thing.
Yeah, it's what you were saying before too about kind of like the three-pronged idea. It's helpful too to see because some of the things they're funny too, when things get rejected, they'll say, oh, we thought it was just too much of a pun, or we thought that it was just this one joke. So they're agreeing like, yeah, this idea is funny, but it needs more, or it needs more of like a regular headline slant, or you know, what's gonna happen in the body of the joke.
Yeah.
Because plenty of the stuff that gets pitched is funny. But then they're also, I feel like they're reading it and they're looking further into it of like, well, what is this article? How are we gonna pose this picture?
Yeah, exactly. No, and now that I've just been doing this like this fantasy site for a week, this fantasy football site, and already I'm looking at things like how are we gonna make, like you said, the picture. I was like, how are we gonna make the picture? Because that's a big part of it too. It's like stuff that you never think of that you're just like, oh, this all matters.
So earlier today, that picture that I sent you, I went out.
That was so funny. Yeah. Not funny. That was a good picture, but your caption was pretty funny.
I went out into the desert wearing a purple wig. I had like the face scarf thing. I couldn't find goggles. That's like the last piece that I need.
The sunglasses are great. You look like Ramona Flowers is what you look like.
I had a sparkly hula hoop and like a parasol, umbrella, and just like posing in the desert casually. And I went to 2 different spots. One of them was like a hiking trail area, and it was amazing to me. Said shit to me. There was an entire cross-country team that ran by me. We're talking like 20 high school boys. Yeah. And I'm standing there, I'm wearing like these intergalactic leggings and boots, like a whole head-to-toe outfit.
Yeah.
And I'm like the Burning Man correspondent.
That's hilarious. God damn it.
Yeah, trying to pose. Well, hopefully it will be funny tomorrow. That's
it's so no, like that and by the way, beautiful shot. I was like the way the parasol mixes with the blue sky and the lighting off you.
That was actually with the lighting. It's really funny. I texted that to a couple of friends, like from the playa, and I got a couple of responses. They're like, "Dude, I didn't know you were going to Burning Man. That's crazy! Like you didn't tell me." And I was like, no, I'm actually texting you from the toilet in my apartment in Phoenix. I'm not in Burning Man.
Well, they don't
like
have
such a jet.
Dude, the funniest ever. Now that we've all been talking about like Burning Man, like pitches and stuff, like last week or whatever, I was really thinking about what's it called? I've been really thinking about like just my favorite Burning Man joke ever. And it's not just a joke. Did you ever watch Malcolm in the Middle? I know it's kind of a normie show, no big deal. But like they had an episode like in the later seasons where and now that Bryan Cranston did Breaking Bad, it's so cool to see, like looking back at that, going like, oh, they had that actor the whole time. It's him. They basically, Malcolm's going to Burning Man with one of his brothers. And the whole family finds out, and they're like, and he's like, to get them to like be okay with it, he's like, no, it's a real friendly, family-friendly place. And they go, oh, let's make this our family vacation for the year. So ultimate suburban family goes to Burning Man, and their dad is trying to treat it like a normal RV, like suburban vacation. And he's got his like grill set up, he's got his like fake lawn. But here's the thing, all the people at Burning Man think him having his vacation is an art piece of the suburban male who's trapped in these. I'm not, before spoiling any specific jokes from it, if you just go, you can probably find it on YouTube, or I'm sure it's on Netflix or Hulu or whatever. Find that episode, the Malcolm in the Middle Burning Man. It is literally the scenes with him acting out his just normal vacation while these Burning Man hippies think he's an art project is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen in my life. I would highly recommend that episode. All right, tell us any other promotional stuff. Assume this goes up at the end of the week. Go tell us anywhere else we can find you, even any events you got going on. I don't know who listens to this, so who knows? You might get 2 more people at your show.
Yeah, do you have anybody from Phoenix that listens to your show?
Yes, actually, a couple. Actually, just like 2. Literally a couple. They're getting married. I'll be in Tucson for the wedding in March. But so 2.
Oh, come say hi. We have there's another Hard Times writer from Phoenix. But I haven't met him yet. I will be at Queen's Pizzeria September 10th. So you can come see some comedy and eat some delicious garlic balls.
But that's just for dinner. I'll be on my way. But yeah, no, nice.
What else? I'm going to Cinder Block Comedy Festival. I'll be in Brooklyn.
Nice. Oh, really? Nice. When?
Yeah. Come say hi. That's like September 15th through something. That's going to be
coming up 2 weeks after that. God damn it. All right. But yeah, September 15th through whenever.
Yeah, and then some. I'm doing. It feels silly to be telling you this because I don't know if anybody outside, anybody in Arizona is going to be hearing this. But I'll be at Laughter at the Lounge, and I'll be at Comedy on Fire, and Brouhaha in Tucson.
Like I said, I got a couple in Tucson who are very much into stand-up comedy. So.
Yeah, when you come out, Tucson's only like 2 hours south from here. Nice. They have a pretty fun scene there too, so check it out.
Cool. All right, awesome.
Otherwise, that's I think that's it.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I hadn't done the podcast in close to a month, just because I've been busy with a shit ton of other stuff. But like, I'm not kidding. I'm glad you agreed to do it right away. There are a handful of Hard Times writers, and you were pretty much at the top of that list that I wanted to talk to, based on pitching. No, for real. They're like, I love the group, and I love so many of the people in it. And that's partially why I give like so much on the podcast, so much praise to Matt, Ed, and Bill for creating this group of people beyond everything else.
And Ed, don't forget about Ed.
Wait, what did I just say? Oh, son of a bitch. It's late. I've done 3 of these in a row. Give me a break. But like,
poor Ed's probably like crying himself to sleep. He never gets shout outs.
Ed is going to be the one who, when all this blows up and it's like super famous, Ed's going to be the one who's like, I can still walk around in the street, motherfucker. You guys branded yourselves too well. But like, I can go to UFC and WWE events and not get recognized. That's a very Ed specific joke. And Giants games. But it's just like the fact, like the real underlying thing of Hard Times that only some people like could really understand because they're a part of it is like, God, I sound like a douchebag. Sorry, everyone listening, but like, is that they got together a group of people who, dude, I'm not kidding you. I have people on, even if it's such a controlled environment where I know who they are ahead of time, and it's a 50-50 shot if they're going to be a good podcast guest or not, let alone someone I like talking to. And Hard Times has been 100% someone who's a great guest, who if I didn't have to go, I'd want to talk for another hour. And like, I guarantee you, I'm going to send you 8 different topics. So I was like, I wish we could have talked about this. Tell me your thoughts. Fuck the podcast. I just want to talk. Like that's the environment they've created.
You want. We can do a follow-up. It can be all about Morrissey and about our depressing teenage years.
I was going to say, hold on. I get excited and I knock the headphone out of my ears. I don't know what's happening. So, I do group casts. Yeah. What about this has been professional? Like, is it one thing been professional?
Fisting your rock star drink and whatever booze you drink.
Listen. It's Monster. It's not Rockstar because I played on Warped Tour last year. So I drink Monster Energy and plastic bottle vodka and pumpkin pear. It's the cocktail to success. No, but I do group cast versions of this, and if you're interested, I'd love to throw you on like the group whatever of past guests where I just say, I got this podcast, if you want to jump on and just talk shit with a bunch of comedians, please come on. So if you're interested, I'd love to throw you on that chat, and that would be great.
That sounds super sweet. You should invite Ed to be on that. Give him a little love, you know? I wonder if he feels left out.
His younger brother. I am Ed's number one. You know what? Just to make up for this next 10 times I'm on the podcast, I'm going to wear a shirt that just says Ed, #1.
It's really funny because I haven't really worked with him, and he messaged me this weekend that he assigned one of my pitches. And for a second I was like, am I in trouble because my last article, I've always worked with Bill. I was like, am I in trouble because it was so bad? And now Bill doesn't want to work with me. Ed's begrudgingly I guess we'll work with Sari, messages.
By the way, this is something that I haven't I didn't mention with you, but I've probably mentioned with so many other writers who are really good, is that every single, somebody who I know who's really funny or good at comedy, whether it's writing, stand-up, both, whatever, they don't take compliments that well. They deflect. This is how I know Bill. I know Bill's a great writer because he's a great writer, but he is so, you think I'm uncomfortable with compliments. That dude is so uncomfortable with compliments. I think he told me to fuck off or he'd punch me in the face the last time I told him he was a genius. It's something like that level of but I think in that healthy attitude of unhealthy attitude of, oh, did something change in my routine? That must mean everyone hates me and I'm terrible. That is such a sign of a good artist. Not because they're already good, but because that's the unhealthy mindset of always get better, always do better. I suck. I should always do better.
I hope you're right. I hope you're right. The last thing that I wrote about the punk practicing selling out in front of the mirror, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I sent a draft to Bill and he was kind of yeah, what about this? And I sent him another draft, and that one, for whatever reason, it took way longer. We were not seeing the same thing. And I one of the emails, I think I just messaged him and I'm like, I know you're not supposed to start a comedy pitch with, I think this is shit. But I was like, I don't really know.
Yeah.
And he's like, really nice message. He was like, no, the reason why the Hard Times works is because we collaborate. It's all good.
Yeah.
And then he wrote something thanks for not being fuck off with all your feedback and commentary. Fuck off, Bill. I was like, no, not at all. I was worried that he was like, who is this bitch thinking she can write for the Hard Times?
No, dude, that's exactly right. It's there are so many times where it's just, you pitch something, it is the collaboration, and that's one of the things I talked to Matt about when I started the fantasy football site, where he was like, yeah, there are people who come in, and I heard this way before then because they all have messaged me at one point going thanks for just taking our suggestion and not being an asshole. It's no problem. Do people mouth off to you? Why would anyone mouth off?
I know, I looked at him, I was like, do people actually do that? I was like, because if so, I'm totally going to cuss you out the next time. So I think maybe if you move the body of this paragraph and, do this, I'm just going to be like, fuck off, Bill, you don't know what you're talking about.
I'll cuss you twice. Yeah, exactly. That's what I could never understand. And probably, if I started comedy earlier on, because there were plenty of times with music where someone gave me feedback that I probably should have used, I ignored for 4 or 5 years because I was too stubborn with my vision. And that can be good. Being stubborn with your vision is good when your vision's good. But I was basically blind. Like, it was terrible, everything I was doing. And so, like, the more I've listened to other people and learned to go, like, every time I do terrible at something, whether it's bombing a set or a joke doesn't go well or a pitch doesn't go well or I get heavy feedback, like edits on an article, my response is like, good, thank God. Like, now I can learn from something. It's harder to figure out what you need to do better than it is to actually do that better. Like, for real.
Even with this this Burning Man piece, which I think is supposed to come out in the morning, I actually, while I'm talking to you,
Christ, get off of this and write it.
Well, it's mostly done, but I looked and I have a text message from Matt that's like, text me when you're done. No rush, though.
Except there's a deadline, and I'll stab you in the face twice.
It's pretty much done, but I was writing it last night, and I was just like, I don't even know if this is funny.
Yeah.
You know, where you get kind of lost in it. I was just like, I'm going to send this to you, and forgive me if this is not at all what you were picturing, but I'm open to your suggestions.
Yeah. Well, I am excited. I'm excited to read that, and thank you so much for coming on.
Hopefully it will be a success. I'm hoping if I can get people like really believing that I'm at Burning Man, I think I'm going to post that photo.
That is so funny. Yeah. Well, thank you.
If I get somebody really thinking that they sent me, I'll be happy.
I'll make a fake Facebook picture or profile and just be like, this changed my mind about everything in the world. Yeah. And it's the greatest, and it made me happy. And now I can live my life. Now I can go to my grave complete, knowing that I read this article.
Shit. Now you've said way too much. It's not going to be that good.
And then I'm going to print it out, and I'm going to mail it to you.
Use all of it in your printer.
Because I feel like you have room. I feel like you have
ads too.
I feel like you have room on your fridge. For one more. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I'm going to invite you back to group podcasts, and I look forward to interacting with you on the internets and all that stuff. I never know how to end these, but it was so good talking to you.
That sounded kind of creepy, but thank you.
God damn it. Well, you'll get the last word this time, but I'll think of something, and the next time you're on, I'll be ready. All right. Have a good night. I'll catch you later.